Hi, in this book review video, I am going to talk about When We Were Innocent, and this is by Kate Hewitt. I don't know how many Kate Hewitt historical fiction books I have read. I have read maybe a half dozen and maybe a half dozen women's fiction. I love Kate Hewitt. Now, this book is pretty much a women's fiction book because we have Libby Trent, who finds out that her father, Daniel Weiss, is not the man she thought he was. In fact, I'm going to tell you that some impactful books will lead me to take a few notes. And in this particular one, I did, because this book was so impactful. Now, of course, I left right out of it, so I'm trying to get back to it. Now, she gets a knock on her door, and someone comes to her door. His name is Simon, and he says, "We have proof, evidence, that your father is actually Hans Brenner, a Nazi soldier during World War II." What? Libby is like, what? No, my father's name is Daniel Weiss. He couldn't be a Nazi. As a matter of fact, my mother was half Jewish. Who is Daniel Weiss anyway? Who is her father? He's a retired accountant, a calm, quiet man. But there's a moral dilemma here. Libby is like most people who believe that any Nazi needs to pay for their crimes. And that's the moral or ethical dilemma that she finds herself in. Will Libby help Simon identify her father as Hans Brenner? What will she do? Because he's 93 years old. Will she help him to be prosecuted, to be in prison for the rest of the few years he has left on this planet? And how did he hide his past for decades? 60, 70 years. Now, Libby is already living with emotional pain because her mother left her and her father when she was, I think, 5 years of age. Very, very young child. So she's already lost one parent, and now she's faced with the prospect of losing another parent. Because if he is indeed Hans Brenner, which he can't be, he just can't be. But if he is, he's got to pay for his crimes. Now, this book was incredibly impactful, let me say that again. This book was incredibly impactful, highly emotive, completely and utterly devastating, but it held on to the smallest thread of hope. Poor Libby had to ride or walk a tightrope of compassion and horror. Now, when Libby got married, she told her husband before they got married that me and my father are a pair. At some point, he's going to come live with us. And as her father started to have memory issues, that happened. So he's been living with her and her husband and their young 10-year-old son, their young son, for 10 years. Their life is going great, but it's a dual timeline story. As we go into the other timeline during World War II, we learn about Sobibor. Okay? I didn't know what Sobibor was. Well, Sobibor was an extermination camp that was built and operated by Nazi Germany as part of Operation Reinhard. It was located in the forest in the village of Sobibor in Poland. Every historical fiction book I read of late is taking place in a different area of the world. I am a consummate student, a student of a lifetime, or a lifetime student. I always want to learn. So I looked up Sobibor, and that's what I found. It's an extermination camp in Poland. Now, remember I said it's a dual timeline story. So, timeline. We meet young Hans Brenner and his sister. She's 17, he's about 22, and he's involved in the war, but not to the degree he wants. He wants to do more. Well, he gets that very chance, but there's a caveat. Their parents have deceased, so he tells his new superiors that my sister has to come with me somehow, some way. So she does. He gets to this camp, and as he's going in, and he sees a barber shop, and he sees another shop, and this is a nice place I'm going to be working in. Yeah, okay. But he doesn't realize what that camp is. But guess what? His sister is no slouch. She knows something is up about the location that they're in. So, one thing I didn't want to do, I did not want to have compassion for Hans. I did not want to have compassion for him. But our story talks about how Libby is now dealing with this revelation that her father could be this soldier. So, who is Daniel Weiss then? If her father's not Daniel Weiss, and if the story takes place in a dual timeline fashion, present and past, who is Daniel Weiss and who is Hans Brenner, and how are they connected, and why is her father going around or having lived for decades and decades as Daniel Weiss? Okay? Now, you have to realize that her father had been living a normal life for decades. So the question is, what tipped the U.S. government off, or that the government off? What was the tip? That's what I'm trying to say. What was the tip that pointed the finger at Daniel Weiss to say that, no, he's not Daniel Weiss at all. He's Hans Brenner. Now, Simon doesn't have complete proof, and the government is not going to just grab a hold of him until they have absolute evidence. So Libby says, okay. So what does she do? Her father goes off to a day program one day. Remember, he's 93 years old. She sends him off to a day program, says, look, Dad, we're going to get the carpets clean. It's better if you not to be here. So he goes to the day program, and she starts to search his room, his space, his closet. Guess what she finds? She finds two things. She finds a photo, and she finds a letter. And that's when the moral dilemma comes up. Yeah. Now, Sobibor, Poland was an actual extermination camp during World War II. And let me tell you, this is where the book became devastating. Part of the devastation, of course, is Libby's life being turned upside down by discovering her father was a Nazi war criminal. That's not a spoiler. So that was part of the devastation. But the other part of the devastation is how Kate Hewitt took this. I think I said early on that it's a women's fiction, and I'm dead wrong. It's a historical fiction, but that's neither here nor there. What Kate Stewart does is she paints this picture of what was going on in Sobibor, Poland, so vivid, so real, that it was painful. It was painful. And I'm not going to spoil it by telling you what those things were. But there's a lot of darkness in here. And you have to just read this book. I don't know what else to say. I just don't know what else to say. I'm just thinking, I just don't want to know what else to say, because you got this two voices here. You've got Libby's and you've got Hans. Hans is her father. But remember, his voice was back in the 40s during World War II. So how does Kate Hewitt write this story to make it cohesive and for you to understand and absorb the impact that this revelation had on Libby? But we're 10.5 minutes into this video, and I have to stop because no spoilers. Read this book yourself. Grab a hold of some more knowledge about how the meticulous research that Kate Hewitt did on Sobibor, Poland, and how it was possible for someone to live in the United States for decades as if he wasn't the person he claimed to be. So I want to thank you for watching, and I guess I'll tell you, yeah, it's definitely at Amazon for probably $2.99, I think. Yeah, $3.99. But you can also get it on your Kindle Unlimited. I'm checking right now. Yes, $3.99 or Kindle Unlimited. Either way, I say definitely get this book. It's just an excellent 5-star read. Alrighty, thank you for watching.